Hello, and in this part we're going to create a digital asset of the door, and this digital asset can then be opened in game engines like here in Unity. So we can in game engine manipulate values to get the style of the door that we would like to have. Then here back in Houdini, we're going to create a digital asset. So normally you can, for example, select everything and go here in create digital asset from selection. But since we want a door that has the possibility to open and close, I have to have a little different approach, and this is similar like in the create tutorial. So instead of creating our digital asset on the SOP level, so right now we are on SOP level where we manipulate surfaces and geometry, I want to go back to the object level here, and in here for now let's just create another box, and we have to create a digital asset from these elements. So you can select them and then you can put them in a network, which is here. It's also the shortcut Shift C to create this subnetwork. And now we can right click on this node as well and say create a digital asset. So there are two ways of creating an asset, is the right click or going up here and creating this asset. Then here we can fill in a location to save it, and we can actually directly save it into the Unity project if you would like to. So in here, everything is set up. I saved it into my Unity folder, which if when pressing accept, it's going to directly save it into Unity. If I would quickly jump in here, I now have an HT folder here as well. Here I have loaded in the asset, and we can see it's working, except the materials are wrong, and we also have some parameters that we actually don't really need at the moment. So let's tweak a few things back in Houdini. So first of all, I'm gonna select all these parameters, select the invisible, then just applying. So they are gone now. Before I set up the values, I'm gonna go in this network, and I'm gonna split up the door in different parts, and the parts will be the door frame and the left door and the right door. So each part can then be separately controlled in Unity. So in here, let's say this is the door left. So we have here the full result of this door. I'm gonna bypass this mirror and also this mirror right here. And here we're gonna split the geometry back by attributes. So add ID index equals 1. So then we have everything except from that part. So we're gonna do this for all the index. And you might think like, why don't we directly do it from here? Is later on I will actually do the unwrapping right here. So it might be actually a good idea to already put a null node here. And later on, this will be the low poly with UVs and so on. So that is for later on to unwrap everything and also prepare baking and high poly, so that will come in this stage. So right now, let's just focus on creating the digital asset and getting a first look in the game engine. So here I might change the index, so 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm gonna create more null nodes. So this is my left door, so left. Then this is the top part. This is then the frame. I'm just gonna go sides. These are the side panels. And this is then the lock. So what I'm gonna do is place this lock right here. And I'm gonna create a right door. And this is then basically the mirrored version. And don't keep the original one. And the lock can actually be merged here on the right. So we have a part with lock, And also same for the sides, we actually need to mirror. So we are restoring the original shape. So we're making the full door right here. So if I would merge this and preview this, this is the full door. So also important to know that if we do unwrapping here, only these pieces will have unique unwraps. And then all the other pieces, like this part, is then the same UV space as this one. Also with the door from left and right, you have both the same UV space. You can even go more extreme and cut off this whole side, the half of it, and then only unwrap that part if you would like to have that to save up more on UV space. So that is set up, and I'm now gonna go back in this network and create some geometry nodes. So we need one for the right door, and then I need one for the frames. Door frame. And I could delete this if I want to. Then going in here, I'm using the object merge node. And here I can then reference the right door, as you could see here. I'm also going to put a null node here and call it right. Then you can already see we have the basic doors here, and then we only need to add the frames. So again, using the object merge node, the sides, and then I also need the top parts, and I merge them together, and again a null node, and I'm gonna give them a name here. I'm just gonna call it frame. So now we can see that everything is restored, and if we now go back and save the asset and rebuild it here in Unity. So now here in Unity, I can actually see that it's not working correctly. We don't see the other parts, and we're gonna fix that. So go back here, and we actually need to change this part. It's gonna automatically go 2 times up, look for the door left and search for right, instead of having this manual thing where it's gonna look for objects and then subnetwork. So it's same here. And let's then save the asset. Go back in Unity, rebuild it, and now we can see the door. And let's already take care of also the material. So we're gonna automatically assign a material in Houdini instead of relying on default materials. So in here, in this line, I'm gonna use the Unity material one. That is called Unity material, and it's gonna assign the material correctly. Then in here you have to fill in the path to the material. So in my case, Unity is gonna look at the asset folder, Sci-Fi corridor, then in material, and then I take my clay material. So basically the structure you need to take is this one here. You need to just type in this path and then type the specific name of the material. This node is also available for Unreal, so if you type in Unreal, you have also a Unreal material with the same setup, except for Unreal then. So that is set up, and let's save the asset. So now we can see my door. We can see that something is going on, because everything turned out to be blue on my screen. That might be because I didn't add any normal information. So I'm gonna add some normal information and rebuild it back in Unity. And now we have the correct result. Now we are ready to jump back in Houdini and create parameters so we can actually control some of the shapes. So first of all, opening the menu to create the values. And one of the first values that I want to use is, of course, the base size that I made here. And I want to change the size, of course. So only want to change the Y and the Z, because I don't really need the thickness of the door. And I'm going to change the names to height, door, and width of the door. And these are the base parameters. Then I will create some folders, because I want to make a difference between the the door and the frame values. So this will be specifically door settings. Then I can just copy this here, and this one I'm gonna call frame settings. So you can control parts of the frame. So we're gonna start out here with the door settings, and first thing I already want to do is expose this switch node, and this will allow us to, if you remember, this allows us to change the panel type. So I'm gonna drag this value here in the folder, and I'm gonna call this input panels, and go in here in the menu options and enable menu, so we can create a menu. So when the value is 0, we will have all panels. When the value is 1, you have the sides. I'm going to call them sides. And then when value is 2, I'm going to call it the reverse of the sides. So press apply. Then if you would go back here, we can see that we have this menu where we can control the sides, reverse sides. Then further down here, we can do the beveling. So we can again drag this here and create a menu, or we can create a toggle and you can enable bevel. And I'm going to give it a better naming here, toggle door bevel. And here we want to get that parameter, so we're going to type in ch channel. We're going to have to fill in the path, and that would look something like this. And now we can already see the values that I've just created here are also accessible here now. And when I just type in the T, I have the toggle. So by default, it will take value 0. Default values can be changed here in the channels, and then we can change the default value if you would like that. Something that was nice to have here was the poly expand. So you can change the thickness here and the space between the panels. So we want this value. So I will select this value. I'm going to call Control C, type in 1, and drag this in here and press apply. Now you can see it's being green and it has this automatically referenced. And then I want to multiply the value back that I just copied. So this small value. So instead of working with small values, I multiply by this reference. And I'm going to rename this to space between panels. So we can always go back here and we see our properties. So if we put bevel, we can see everything is getting beveled. If we want to increase the spacing, we can see that also works pretty nicely. So then I want to create another folder, and this will be the Boolean shapes. So basically this one. And I want to control some of these shapes so I can decide how my shape will look. In here, I would like to have control of this placement, so I can place this box around and decide what the pattern should be. So I will be exposing this. So I'm gonna drag it here. Drag this one as well. And we might need to include some separators so we know which one is which. So I'm gonna call it panel 1 size Y, and then here this is then the position of the panel, and this also position on the Z size, so we have some control in where it moves. And I'm gonna do the same here, so I can drag and drop this here. Panel 2 size, and then position, to make sure you have like a separator so it's a bit clear in the interface to work with. And then you can also expose some values here. So let's take this size. And I'm gonna call it panel 3 then. So we have this setup. There, you can also do different approaches to this system. Like in the create generator, I used a multi-parameter, and based on this multi-parameter, I would create Boolean shapes. So that could also be interesting to look at. So we can go back here, and you can see our values. And I can already instantly notice that our sliders are already at the end. So I'm just gonna go here. We can select multiple at a time. And let's say they can go from minus 1.5 to 1.5 and press apply. And now we have this sliders. So I'm gonna do the same here as well. You can select multiple and then use the range. So it should be easier now to control it, as you could see. And you can also see that the detailing of these Sci-Fi surface detailing is automatically scaling with it. I also see that I don't need the -1 on the scaling on the size here. That's not really needed. When it goes super small, you can see that it's getting a little bit hard for the tool to make something out of it. So we can then lock this to, for example, 0.2. And now we can see now going on in action. So we can like control these shapes where they are and we can move them. As you can see, we can create some quite interesting looking surfaces. Then we can go back here and select what we want to view. Let's say we want to only see the bottom panel, or we want to see them all. So that works correctly. And the last thing I want some control in here is the some of the Sci-Fi surface detail. So I'm gonna create a folder. I'm gonna just call it detail settings. And the main setting I actually want here is this, move along normal. And from this one, I would like to control the beginning and the end cut. I'm also going to use the separator here, so it's clearly separated. And we could also, for example, take the scale on the y-axis. You can expose more parameters if you would like to. I'm going to keep it to these 3 and see if that works nicely. So going back up here, let's go in the detail settings here. The move along will push them farther from the edge, as you could see. And also I might tweak the slider so it doesn't go super far. And then we can also control the cut where this is happening. Like if you want to have it specifically on these upper parts, you can control that. Or if you'd like to have something like this, that would also be possible. The last thing I want to include in the door is some of the guidance when I start using these booleans in Game Engine. So what you could do is, I'm using a null node here, and I'm gonna reference these shapes. So I'm gonna call them guides. And these guides, normally in an HDA, you have a slot available for guide geometry, but in this case, we don't have access to it. So I'm gonna go here and object merge node. and reference the guides. And I'm gonna merge this so it's actually part of the door, and I'm also putting a symmetry on it just for viewing purposes. And of course we don't want to see this every time, so I'm gonna build a switch node and create a null node, and in the parameters we're gonna create a toggle, and I'm gonna put the toggle here in the boolean folder. So I'm gonna give the name enable guides and give the better property name toggle guides. And here back referencing this with the channel toggle guides. When I would save this and go, for example, back in Unity, I can rebuild the asset. We now have all these settings available, and we can also enable the guide system here. As you can see here, I might scale them a bit down. So in here, I'm gonna transform this and scale them like this. Then again, I would save the asset and go back in Unity and rebuild. So we also didn't assign a material here automatically. You can also do that. You can, for example, do a transparent material. But the main reason I built this guide is to clearly see where my shape is going. So when I move values here, we can now see it in Unity what is actually doing it. So if I would create more complex geometry like this, I can sort of like know still what's going on, and then just disable the guides. It might happen when you put the toggle off that the material might be confusing. What you can do is rebuild the asset and it should be fine. Then back in Houdini. So we're gonna now create parameters for the frames, and I want to make more folders. So the first folder is called the sides of the frame, and the other folder is then the top part of the frame, so top frame. What I mainly want to do is then the booleans. So I'm gonna create another folder, boolean. I want this folder as well here. So we're gonna first do the side of the frames, which is this part. And I'm gonna expose these values. And then name it better. I call it shape 1 size Y. And also placing down a separator here and apply. And I'm gonna do the same then for this node then as well. And if you would like to, you can also expose again some of these values here. So detail settings, and you can then pick what you would like to have as settings. So maybe here we want to have the round box, and I might have to put the scale up and move this. So we can have like different types. Let's just take this input and the scaling, so I can control the scaling better and move along normals. And I will be doing the exact same for the top part. So we're going to create some boolean values, and I'm also going to create then some values for the detail. So I'm going to speed up this part a bit because it's the same. So this part is also then set up so I can control my booleans, and then I also have a few controls on the detail surface. And now I'm gonna jump back in Unity and click Rebuild Asset. And I've noticed a mistake. So something to keep in mind is that you always need to be focused on this one. And now going back here should be fine. And now we can see you have all the settings that we want to have. One thing you can notice is that it's working fast, but not like super fast. And one of the reasons why this is because of these details that is being placed. They take a little bit of time to calculate. If you would, for example, temporarily skip these details, it's going to work faster. So what we need to do is we go back to where we create these surface detail. And if we create a switch node, and you have the ability to sort of like switch between the details and without details. So I'm gonna build a toggle here for the moment. So this is just temporarily. I'm gonna call it previewer. And here, preview, and copy paste this node where all the sci-fi detail is, and then replace it basically. So pressing apply and going back in Unity, we now have this previewer toggle and all the details are gone. And if you would now change values, you can feel it's a bit more responsive. So that's something interesting to have. If you would just want to quickly block out the shapes of the door, I would recommend like building in the preview or builder state or something, so you can quickly make your shapes. That was it for this part of the video. Next part will be going over some of the high poly and low poly creations, so we can actually get a game ready model